When using Money Magnify, one of the greatest features is the ability to load in recurring transactions. What we mean by that is transactions that happen on a regular basis, and they can be both income transactions and expense transactions. A good example of an income transaction may be salary that goes in fortnightly or monthly, maybe even weekly, and a good example of an expense is something like a phone bill, for example, that comes every month. So let's look at the way recurring transactions work within Money Magnify. So we can start from any view, be it calendar mode, list mode, or even daily mode, and we can right click and add either an income or an expense. Or we can go to the income or expense area and load them directly from here. So in this case, let's have a look at a recurring income, and then we'll do the same with a recurring expense, and look at how we can change those as well. So we might put in an income, and we choose which account it's going to, and we can now choose a type or description. So we can see in the list there are a few that come with this, the package as a standard, like salaries and pays, but you can also create your own. So maybe you've got an interest in a share portfolio that pays you monthly on the 20th of the month, $50. So we can say share dividends, and it will add that to our list. Now we can say which date does it start on, and let's say it's going to start on, we said the 20th, but we're going to choose the 1st for this example, and we'll say it's $50. Now here's the key. We're going to tick this as a recurring transaction. We've talked about passive income in another video, and I'll tick that one as well because that's what this would be, coming from a share portfolio. So recurrence, and then we must tick the actual recurrence and set up this occurrence. It's very important to make sure that the date up here corresponds with the date you want the first transaction, and we can now select that it continues forever, no end date, ends after a certain number of occurrences, so maybe you've got 12 months of payments coming or something like that, or you can end by a particular date. I'm going to choose no end date in this example. We're going to say that this happens monthly, so we can make that selection here. You'll notice that the selection changes. So if you're choosing daily, you can choose every 1 or 2 or 3 days, or every weekday as an example. If you're choosing weekly, you can choose, it happens every second week on a Monday and a Saturday, for example. You can choose monthly and say it happens on a particular day of the month, so you might say the 16th of every month, or it happens on the first Monday or the second, third, fourth, or last particular day of the week of every 1, 2, 3 months. Fairly self-explanatory, but it gives you a lot of flexibility there. And of course annually, you can say every January there's the particular date or the first day of January, so you can select those options there as well. So for our example, we're going to say it happens on the 20th, oh sorry, the 1st of every month. So we'll go monthly, we'll say it happens on day 1 of every month, and we just simply click on apply. We'll see this happen twice, where it loads in our recurring transactions, and that's now saved. If we now go to our calendar view, on the 1st of the month, and double click, we'll be able to see that income there. Let's do the same with an expense just very quickly. So we'll go to a particular day of the month, let's say it's the 29th as a good example, and we'll right click, add an expense, and let's say that our phone bill comes in on that particular day of the month. So we're going to say that now again I can type and search, or I can just simply choose from the list. We're going to say the phone bill happens on the 29th, and it's always about $120. We'll talk about what happens, because the bill's never exactly 120, but we'll talk about that in just a second. So we'll load in our recurrence, and again we're going to select monthly, and we make sure we have the right date. It's happens on day 29 of every month. Now watch what happens when I click apply, because obviously there are some months that don't have 29 days. And it gives us our option. Some months have fewer than 29 days. For these months, the occurrence will fall on the last day of the month, and we can just say that that's okay. It'll again load those recurring transactions in, and we now have our phone bill coming in on the 29th of every month. If I scroll forward to look at X number of months ahead, I can still see on the 29th of that month, and I'll double click in, I can see that particular phone bill. So, now, not all transactions are the same. We might have a variance by $10 or $20 or $5,000. It doesn't really matter. So we're building these transactions as a template in Money Magnify. And we can then adjust these transactions when the actual bills or income statements arrive. So let's say that our phone bill is a good example, and we'll go back. We'll just click on our Today button and go back to Today. And I can see that phone bill is on the 29th of the month, and we've loaded it in as a template for $120. Now, we actually get the phone bill, and shock horror, it's $134. So what I can do is just double-click into the day, and then double-click into the transaction, and I get this option. Do I want to edit this transaction just this once, the entire series? In other words, am I changing the phone bill to 135 from ever on, or am I changing the entire recurring series from the day we first entered it? So if it was a permanent change, and let's have a look at what an example of that might be. We might say that our rent has gone from $1,000 a month to $1,200 a month. Now that's a permanent change, so we can make that the recurring series from this point. Or we could say the entire recurring series working backwards as well. But in this case, the phone bill happens every month. We need to change it every month, but it's as simple as this. So we're going to say, just change it for this occurrence, and instead of being $120, it's actually $135. And we click on Save, and that instantly updates our figures, and our Money Magnify is now up to date. Let's have a look if that's a permanent change. So we've got an expense there for $20 on the 4th. Let's double click and find out what that is. That's the electricity account. We've decided that it's a permanent change. We're going to change it from $20 to $30. So we'll double click. Instead of choosing this occurrence, we'll choose reoccurring series from this point. Click on OK. Change from 20 to 30. And just again click on Save. It'll refresh our recurrence dates. And now if we look at our system on the 4th of the month, and we scroll forward, the 4th of the month as well, it's now changed to $30 from that point in. So you can quite simply double click into a recurring transaction and change that just this once or for the entire series. So that's how recurring transactions work within Money Magnify, and that gives you the ability to forecast forward. So remember, we're talking about loading these transactions in with as much accuracy as you can, so as you look forward, months and months and months and years if you choose to, you can quite simply look at any number of years, forward or backwards. You can then go anywhere in the future and look at those figures. Let's go to 2012, for example, and based on what you've got loaded in there, you can see an exact figure coming up your bank account as it would be on that day if everything carried forward according to your template. Now that's an impossible task, but we've just seen how easy it is to change those transactions as and when we need to. Thanks, we look forward to seeing you on the next video.